Good morning, dear students. Today, inshallah, we're going to start the first part of lesson 4, Central Nervous System. We have learned before that the nervous system consists of two parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Today, inshallah, we're going to start with the first part, which is the central nervous system. Central nervous system consists of two main parts, which are the brain and the spinal cord. We call it central nervous system as it present in the center of the body. And we are going to talk about each one of them in details, inshallah. Let's now start with the first part, which is the brain. The brain is the largest part in the central nervous system. It weighs 1400 grams in adults, and it occupies a very strong bony space اللي هي السكال بتاعتنا, or we may call it the cranium. This is for the protection of the brain. Also, there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves that are connected to the brain. The cranial nerves, the nerves اللي coming out of the brain into our head. And this is a part of the peripheral nervous system that we are going to talk about later, inshallah. Also, the brain is surrounded with 3 membranes called meninges. The membrane that surrounds the brain, which is the meninges, it's responsible for the protection and nourishment of the brain cells. Nourishment of the brain cells means that it's responsible for providing it with food. Meninges consists of 3 layers. The first one, the dura mater, and it's the membrane which lines the skull bones. The second one, the pia mater, and it's the membrane which adheres to the brain, attached directly to the brain. The third one is the membrane in between of them. We call it the arachnoid. It's the membrane that fills the spaces in between the other 2 membranes. And it contains a transparent fluid, and this is for the protection of the brain from any trauma. زي مثلا لو حد حصل له hitting أو وقع على دماغه مثلا, الفلويد ده is going to protect the brain from injury. It acts actually like a cushion, عاملة زي المخدة كده, علشان لما يتخبط البرين ما يحصلوش أي damage. إيه بقى main components of the brain? The brain consists of 3 parts. The first one, we call it the forebrain. Second one, midbrain. The third one is the hindbrain. We will talk about each one of them in details, inshallah. عندنا هنا this picture in front of you. It provides you with all the information about the parts of the brain. عندنا هنا مثلا the forebrain. It consists of 3 parts, which is the hemisphere, thalamus, hypothalamus. The midbrain is present in the middle, and it's a very small part in the brain. It's present above the pituitary gland. The third part of the brain, which is the hindbrain, also consists of 3 parts. We call it the bones, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. And finally, at the base, we have the spinal cord, which is a separate part from the brain. Here we have a bigger picture for the main components of the brain, as we said before: forebrain, hindbrain, and midbrain. Forebrain, as we said, it consists of 3 parts: cerebral cortex, or we may call it hemisphere, thalamus, hypothalamus, midbrain in the middle, and finally we have the hindbrain. That is also consists of 3 parts, which is the bones, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. We will start now with the first part اللي هو forebrain. The first part في forebrain عندنا cerebral cortex, أو we may call it the cerebral hemisphere. هنا عندنا cerebral cortex دي made of 2 big loops معمولة من نصين كده, عاملة بالظبط كده زي ما نجيب فولة مثلا بتتقسم نصين. هو بالظبط كده السيربرال كورتكس عامل زيها, and they are separated by a big fissure زي اللي هو groove موجود في النص كده, and they are connected with each other from the middle. طيب عندنا زي ما بنبص كده على صورة البرين as you can see in the picture of the brain, it contains many fissures and grooves اللي هي التعريجات اللي موجودة دي جوه البرين دي in order to increase its surface area. عشان يعني بيقولوا ان as long as we have these fissures and grooves this indicates our intelligence. يعني كل ما بتزيد الجروفز والفيشرز دي اللي موجودة في البرين الانتليجنس بتاعت الشخص صاحب البرين ده بتزيد. طيب each hemisphere بيبقى divided into 5 loops. In the picture in front of you we can only see 4 loops اللي هم عندنا الفرونتال loop, parietal loop, occipital loop and temporal loop. الفifth loop ده بيبقى we cannot see it as it is present under the frontal and parietal loop. الفرونتال والبارايتال لوب بيبقوا فوقيه بيغطوه، فعشان كده مش بنقدر ان احنا نشوفه كده from the external figure اللي احنا عندنا ده. What is the function of each loop in the cerebral cortex or in the hemisphere? عندنا we will start with the first one which is the frontal loop اللي شايفينه قدامنا ده اللي هو الجزء الريد. الفرونتال لوب دي بتبقى it contains the centers of voluntary movement اللي هي الموتور centers اللي هي زي الموشن والموفمنت بتاعتنا، الحاجات اللي احنا بنقدر نعمل عليها كنترول. Also it contains the centers of speech and memory. The second loop in the hemisphere is the parietal loop. It controls many sensory functions such as عندنا هنا الهيت sensation of heat, coldness, pressure and touch. All these parts are controlled by the parietal loop اللي هو عندنا represented هنا in the yellow part. يبقى ده هنا دلوقتي نقدر نقول ان هو responsible for the sensation of the skin، لان cold والheat والpressure والtouch دي كلها حاجات connected to the skin. نيجي بقى على third loop in the cerebral hemisphere اللي هو occipital loop. ده very important part as it contains sensitive centers that control the vision sense. علشان كده دايما كانوا يقولوا لنا مثلا محدش يضرب حد على قفاه او كده لحسن يتعمي. ليه بقى؟ علشان عندنا occipital loop present at the back of our head وده اللي بيبقى responsible for the vision sense. يجي بقى عندنا last loop اللي هو temporal loop. ده اللي هو represented in the blue color in the picture. ده بيبقى contain centers of many senses زي مثلا عندنا center of smell, center of taste and the hearing sense. Let's now start the second part of the forebrain اللي هي عندنا thalamus. As you can see in this picture الثالاموس اللي هي represented with the red color in the picture. هنا عندنا function of the thalamus. It makes coordination of the sensory nerve impulse that reaches the cerebral cortex except the smell. دي اللي بتعمل coordination، بتنظم sensory nerve impulse اللي بتوصل عندنا للبرين. The last part in the forebrain is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the blue part that is represented in the picture in front of you. هنا عندنا الهايبوثالاموس دي بتعمل control لماني centers of reflex action. زي ايه بقى الريفلكس اكشن دي؟ زي الهنجر، satiety دي يعني اللي هي التخمة، لما واحد كده يكون اكل اكلة تقيلة وما يقدرش يتنفس بعدها، الثيرست، السليب and finally the regulation of body temperature. This is the end of part 1 and I'll meet you again in part 2 إن شاء الله.